You are listening to Revenge Rain, where karma is served hot. Enjoy the story. This Thanksgiving, my mom and I drove back to my grandmother's estate for the family reunion. My relatives, a pack of wolves in designer clothes, were ready to tear us apart as usual. Maybe God finally got sick of watching me suffer. Because the moment I stepped into that house, I was gifted a special ability, the savage Clapback System. The rules were simple. Every time I roast my toxic relatives, I get paid. The more savage the insult, the more money hits my bank account. It was a freezing November evening. My mom and I arrived at Grandma's house at 5:40 p.m., 20 minutes before the scheduled dinner time. But when we walked into the dining room, the turkey was a skeleton. The mashed potatoes were gone. The table was a mess of dirty plates and wine stains. There wasn't even a clean chair left for us. My Aunt Karen, picking her teeth with a floss stick, looked at us with disdain. Well, look who finally decided to show up. We were starving, so we started without you. Linda, since you're here, go wash the dishes. Consider it your contribution since you didn't bring any gifts. I sneered, my voice cold as ice. Eating so fast? Were you guys in a rush to catch a flight to hell? Actually, this holiday season was a nightmare. My mom was diagnosed with end-stage kidney failure. She needed a transplant, and the surgery would cost over $200,000. Without it, she would have to live on dialysis for the rest of her life. 10 years ago, when my dad died in a car accident, Grandma and Aunt Karen conspired to steal his entire life insurance payout and kicked us out of the family house. Now that Mom was sick, they ignored my pleas for help. But today, they invited us back, probably to squeeze whatever pennies my mom had left. I didn't want to come, but Mom squeezed my hand. Chloe, please, for your father's sake. He loved his mother. So, here I was, staring at a table of leftovers. Aunt Karen frowned at my comment. Chloe, watch your mouth. Is that how you talk to your elders? Just then, a mechanical voice rang in my head. Ding. Savage Clapback System activated. Host rewarded. $500. My phone buzzed. I checked the notification. Deposit. $500. Source. Unknown. It was real. I smirked. The game was on. A waiter brought 2 extra chairs. We were at a fancy country club, not the house, I realized. Grandma insisted on fine dining this year. I sat down. Before I could even reach for a bread roll, Aunt Karen started her interrogation. So Chloe, I heard you're getting a PhD in comparative literature? What a useless degree. You'll just end up serving coffee. You should have studied engineering like my son, Brad. He makes 6 figures now. I took a sip of water and replied calmly, 6 figures? That's nice. By the way, why isn't Brad here? Is he busy working overtime to pay off that massive mortgage on his tiny apartment in New Jersey? Or is he hiding because he still hasn't paid you back for his college tuition? Aunt Karen choked on her wine. Her face turned purple. Ding. Reward. $1,000. Another aunt, Aunt Susan, chimed in to save her sister. Chloe, you are 25 and still single. Is something wrong with you? Don't tell me you're unlovable. I tilted my head. Isn't that your fault, Aunt Susan? She blinked. What does that have to do with me? Everything. Your bad genes are scaring the men away from our entire bloodline. Aunt Susan gasped. She tried to maintain her composure, pulling out her phone. I'm just worried about you. Here, I found a great guy for you. He's a manager at a construction firm. Very wealthy. She showed me a photo. A bald, obese man who looked older than my dad. I laughed out loud. Wow, look at that hairline. It's retreating faster than your hairline, Aunt Susan. If you didn't tell me, I would have thought you were introducing a new boyfriend for Grandma. The table went silent. Grandma slammed her fork down. Aunt Susan hissed, "He is 42. He has a BMW and a villa. He's divorced. But experienced men know how to treat women. If you marry him, he can pay for your mother's medical bills." So that was their plan, selling me off to an old man to save money. My mom slammed her hand on the table. "Enough! I am not selling my daughter." I patted Mom's hand. I looked at Aunt Susan with a smile. "Aunt Susan, your daughter Tiffany is 16, right?" Susan narrowed her eyes. "Yes." "So, I have a friend. He owns a crypto mining farm. Very rich. He prefers girls significantly younger than him. How about I introduce Tiffany to him? If they get married, you'll be the mother-in-law of a millionaire." Susan jumped up, screaming, "Are you crazy? She is a child. That's disgusting." I chuckled, my eyes cold. "Oh, so it's disgusting when it's your daughter? But when you try to set me up with a man 20 years older than me, it's charity? You hypocrite. Ding, ding, reward, $2,000. Tiffany?" The spoiled brat sitting across from me slammed her drink down. "Chloe, you loser! How dare you yell at my mom?" I looked at her. "Sorry, I don't speak brat." "Can you translate that into human language? You ugly fat cow!" Tiffany screamed. "When I was younger, I used to be chubby. They bullied me relentlessly for it. Since Dad died, I lost weight from stress and never gained it back, but they still used the old insults." I looked at Tiffany, who was stick-thin and flat as a board. "Tiffany, calling me fat? Honey, you are so flat. If you stand against a wall, you become invisible. People probably mistake you for a boy from behind." Ding. Reward, $1,500. Tiffany burst into tears, turning to Grandma. "Grandma, look at her. She's bullying me." Grandma finally spoke up, banging her cane. "Silence. It's Thanksgiving. Eat your food." The dinner continued awkwardly. Then, the alcohol came out. Grandma raised a glass of wine. Everyone. A toast to the family. "Linda, drink." Mom hesitated. "Mom, I'm on strong antibiotics for my kidney. The doctor said no alcohol." Aunt Karen rolled her eyes. "It's just one sip of wine. Don't be a party pooper. It won't kill you." I grabbed the glass from Mom's hand. "It won't kill her?" "Okay." I reached into my bag and pulled out a bottle of pills. I poured a handful onto the table. "If you want her to drink, let's make it fair. Everyone takes a pill first." I placed a pill in front of everyone. Aunt Karen, Aunt Susan, Grandma, one each. Then we can all drink together. Tiffany shrieked. "Are you insane? Mixing antibiotics with alcohol can cause instant death. Are you trying to kill us?" I slammed my hand on the table. "So you know it can kill you? Then why the hell are you forcing my mother to drink?" I glared at them. "Drink it! I dare you!" Silence. Absolute silence. No one touched their wine. Grandma coughed. "Fine. No wine. Just eat," Mom whispered to me. "Chloe, where did you get antibiotics?" I winked. "It's just vitamin C. Scared them to death, though." At the end of the meal, Grandma looked at the menu. "The lobster here is good. Waiter, pack 5 lobsters for me to take home, and 2 king crabs, and a bottle of expensive wine." She looked at my mom. "Linda, since you're here, you pay the bill. Consider it a gift for my birthday next week. The bill would be at least $5,000. Mom froze. We didn't have that kind of money. I stood up, smiling brightly. "Of course, Grandma. 5 lobsters aren't enough. Waiter, pack 10 lobsters, 5 king crabs, And the most expensive champagne you have. Pack it all for my lovely grandmother." Grandma's eyes lit up with greed. Mom pulled my sleeve, terrified. "Chloe, what are you doing? We can't pay for this," I whispered to Mom. "Who said we are paying?" I grabbed Mom's hand. "Mom, I have a stomach ache. Let's go to the bathroom." We walked out of the private room and straight out the front door of the country club. I turned off both our phones. Behind us, the waiter was bringing out towers of expensive seafood and placing the bill, totaling $15,000, right in front of Aunt Karen and Grandma. I imagined their faces when they realized we were gone. Ding, ding, ding. Massive counterattack. Reward, $10,000. I looked at my bank balance. I had made over $15,000 in one dinner. This was going to be fun. That night, Mom and I turned off our phones and slept soundly. We left the chaos and the $15,000 bill for my relatives to deal with. The next morning, Mom handed me a small gift box. Inside was a red cashmere scarf. "Chloe, I saw you looking at this online. It's for good luck. Wear it, and all the bad things will pass." My eyes stung. I knew she saved for months to buy this. "Mom, about the surgery." She cut me off. "Don't worry about it. I've decided not to do it. It's too expensive. I don't want to be a burden." I gripped her hand tightly. "Mom, trust me. We will get the money." I didn't tell her about the system yet. She was too soft-hearted. 2 days later, Aunt Susan called. Her voice was screechy. "Chloe, meet me at the Starbucks on Main Street at 3 p.m. Mr. Henderson is waiting. Dress nice." She didn't mention the dinner bill. Shameless. I smirked. Another opportunity to farm money? I'm in. At 2:55 p.m., I walked into Starbucks. Aunt Susan was sitting with a man, Mr. Henderson. He had a few strands of hair desperately clinging to a shiny, oily scalp. It looked like a barcode scanner could read his forehead. It was freezing outside, but he bought me the cheapest iced Americano. He looked me up and down like he was buying a horse. "Stand up, turn around." I sat still, sipping my drink. He frowned. "You are shorter than I expected. Are you pure?" "I prefer virgins, but since you have a master's degree, I can overlook it." He continued without letting me speak. "I am 42. I have 2 condos and a BMW. My ex-wife couldn't give me a son. Your main job is to give me a male heir. If you don't, you get nothing. Also, I heard your mother is sick. I won't pay for her treatment. It's a waste of money. Once you marry me, you focus on my family." Aunt Susan nodded eagerly. "Chloe, listen to Mr. Henderson. He has a catch. If you marry him, maybe he can help your brother find a job later." I finished my coffee and smiled sweetly. "Mr. Henderson, how tall are you?" 5'7". I laughed. "Without the shoe lifts?" His face went red. "How old are you really?" 42, in my prime." I chuckled. "Sir, when you were graduating high school, I wasn't even born. You are closer to a hip replacement than a honeymoon." Aunt Susan kicked me under the table. "Chloe, he is a mature man. Mature men know how to treat women." I looked at him. Treat women? He wants a free maid and a broodmare. I leaned forward. "Mr. Henderson, do you know why your ex-wife didn't have kids? Maybe it's natural selection trying to weed out the bad genes. Bald, fat, and delusional. Nature is doing us a favor. Ding, ding. Reward, $3,000. He slammed the table. "You ungrateful little brat." Aunt Susan raised her hand to slap me. "Shut your mouth." I caught her wrist in midair. I smiled coldly. "Aunt Susan, in this state, we have stand your ground laws. If you hit me, I will hit back. And trust me, I hit harder." Then, slap, slap. I slapped her twice. Backhand and forehand, pure reflex. Ding, massive clapback. Reward, $5,000. Aunt Susan screamed, holding her face. You hit me? I shrugged. Self-defense. Keep your hands to yourself. I turned back to Mr. Henderson. And you? Want a wife? Go buy a doll. But knowing you, you'd probably complain the plastic isn't pure enough. I grabbed my bag and walked out, leaving them humiliated in a crowded coffee shop. Mr. Henderson was so angry, he spilled his hot tea all over his pants. Looks like he wet himself, fitting for a toddler trapped in an old man's body. Total earnings for the afternoon, $8,000. From then on, I went on a rampage. I replied to my toxic ex-boyfriend's wedding invitation text. Congratulations, who is the unlucky girl? Does she know about your herpes? Ding! Reward, $500. My upstairs neighbor threw trash on my balcony. I grilled BBQ directly under their open window, using extra chili powder. Ding! Reward, $200. I joined online forums and roasted trolls for hours. My bank account grew fat. By mid-January, I had accumulated over $50,000. One evening, I came home to find Mom crying in the kitchen. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. It was Grandma, Aunt Karen, and Aunt Susan, the whole viper nest. I smiled. The ATMs have arrived. I invited them in, serving them expired cookies and tap water. Aunt Karen looked around our small apartment with disgust. Chloe, good news. We found a kidney match for your mother. My heart stopped. Really? Mom looked up, hope in her eyes. Aunt Karen smirked. Yes. But the surgery requires a $200,000 deposit immediately. We know you don't have it. Grandma stepped forward, acting like a saint. Linda, you are my daughter-in-law. I can't watch you die. I am willing to pay the $200,000. Mom cried tears of joy. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. Grandma pulled out a contract. But business is business. This is a waiver. Sign this, giving up all your rights to your late husband's house, the house I am currently living in. You sign, I pay. My blood boiled. That house was my father's property before marriage. It legally belonged to Mom and me. It was worth at least $1 million. They wanted to steal $1 million house for $200,000? Mom hesitated. But that house is Chloe's inheritance. Grandma slammed her cane. Ungrateful! I am saving your life. Do you want the money or not? I stepped in front of Mom. Grandma, you talk like a saint, but you act like a loan shark. Grandma glared at me. Shut up! This is adult business. I looked her dead in the eye. That house belongs to us. You lived there rent-free for 10 years. Now you want to steal it while my mother is dying? Are you afraid my dad will crawl out of his grave and haunt you? Aunt Karen shouted. Chloe, this is the only way to save your mother. Do you want her to die? I laughed. A cold, terrifying laugh. Who said we need your money? I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I shoved the screen in their faces. Balance, $330,000. I had been grinding the system day and night. Look closely. Can I afford the surgery now? The room went silent. Grandma squinted at the screen. Aunt Karen gasped. Where did you get this money? Did you sell yourself? I snatched the phone back. I made it. And guess what? I made it by roasting parasites like you. I pointed at the door. Get out, all of you. Get out of my house before I call the cops. Grandma was shaking with rage. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I dialed 911 on my keypad. Get out. They scrambled out like cockroaches exposed to light. Mom looked at me, shocked. Chloe, the money. Is it legal? I hugged her. It's legal, Mom. It's justice money. The next day, we went to the hospital. The surgery was scheduled, but I knew the war wasn't over. My relatives wouldn't give up the house that easily. I called a lawyer friend from college. File a lawsuit. We are evicting Grandma. I want my house back. 1 week later, my mom underwent the kidney transplant. It was a success. The donor match was perfect, and her recovery was miraculous. While Mom was recovering, I launched my legal attack. My lawyer friend filed a lawsuit to evict Grandma and reclaim the house my father left us. In court, my relatives tried to play the victim card. They cried about elder abuse and how I was an ungrateful granddaughter abandoning an old woman. But I came prepared. I presented bank statements showing Grandma siphoning my dad's life insurance. I showed medical bills proving my mom paid for everything while Grandma lived rent-free. The judge's gavel banged. Judgment. The house belongs to Chloe and Linda. Grandma has 30 days to vacate. But as my lawyer warned me, evicting a stubborn old woman isn't easy. Grandma refused to leave. She changed the locks and barricaded herself inside. Tiffany sent me a text. "Ha ha ha, you lose, loser. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Try dragging Grandma out. The police won't touch an old lady." I smirked. They wanted to play dirty? I can play dirtier. I couldn't force her out physically, but I legally owned the property. So I decided to do some renovations. I hired a local death metal band called the Screaming Banshees who needed a practice space. I told them they could practice in the living room, specifically between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. I also removed the front door for repairs. In the middle of winter, 2 days later, Grandma couldn't take the freezing cold and the heavy metal concerts. She called the police. The officer arrived. I showed him the deed. "Officer, I own this house. These are my guests. I'm just fixing the door." "Is there a law against fixing my own door?" The officer shrugged and left. Grandma, shivering in her fur coat, finally broke down. She packed her bags and screamed curses at me as she hobbled to Aunt Karen's car. Aunt Karen glared at me. "You will pay for this, Chloe. Karma will get you." I waved. "Karma already got me, Aunt Karen. It paid me $330,000. Drive safe." Now that Grandma was homeless, the loving family began to crack. Aunt Karen didn't want Grandma. Aunt Susan didn't want her either. They fought on the front lawn about who had to take the burden. "You take her. You're the eldest." "No, you have the spare room. My house is full." It was a comedy show. The alliance of vipers crumbled the moment money wasn't involved. Eventually, Aunt Karen took Grandma in, but Tiffany refused to share her room, so Grandma had to sleep on a cot in the hallway. Without the comfort of my dad's big house, Grandma's health deteriorated. She slipped in the bathroom and broke her hip. Now she was bedridden. A bedridden old woman needs constant care. Aunt Karen got tired of the smell and the work. So, she dumped Grandma in a state-funded nursing home, the cheapest one with the worst reviews. 1 month later, the nursing home called me. Grandma was asking for us. I went with Mom. The room smelled of bleach and despair. Grandma looked tiny and frail. When she saw us, she cried. "Linda? Chloe? I was wrong. Only you two truly loved me. Please, take me out of here. Karen never visits. The food is terrible. I have some savings left. I'll give it to you." She pulled out a crumpled bank book. Mom looked at her. For the first time, I saw no pity in my mother's eyes, just exhaustion. Mom placed a fruit basket on the table and pulled her hand away. "Mom, I came here because my husband would have wanted me to, but this is the last time. I am recovering from surgery. I can't take care of you, and frankly, after what you did, I don't want to." Grandma wailed. "I am your mother." I stepped forward, looking down at her. "No, you were a leech, and now you are just a consequence of your own actions." I leaned in and whispered, "Grandma, enjoy your stay. You saved that money by stealing from my dad. Now you can use it to buy extra Jell-O." We walked out into the sunshine. I felt lighter than air. Ding! System notification. Final mission complete. The host has successfully reclaimed her life. System unlinking. Goodbye. The voice in my head vanished, but I didn't feel empty. I felt free. Grandma lingered for 3 more years in that home, lonely and miserable. Aunt Karen's son, Brad, got fired for embezzlement. Aunt Susan's daughter, Tiffany, dropped out of high school to marry a rich crypto bro who turned out to be a scammer. She was divorced by 20 with a mountain of debt. As for me, I invested the system's money. I finished my PhD. I bought a nice condo for Mom and me. Last week, Aunt Karen came to my office. She looked old and haggard. Chloe, Brad needs bail money. We are family. Can you lend me 10,000? I looked at her over my sunglasses. 10,000? Aunt Karen, I wouldn't lend you 10 cents. I called security. Please escort this stranger out. And that brings us to the end of my story. Please note, this is a fictional story collected and edited by us for entertainment and educational purposes. Our goal is to foster emotional awareness, empathy, and understanding. We have absolutely no intention of promoting hatred, offense, or harm toward any individual or group. The lesson we can draw from Chloe's journey is a hard but necessary truth. You do not owe your mental health, your financial security, or your future to anyone who treats you with disrespect, even if they share your bloodline. Love without respect is simply control disguised as duty. Being a good person does not mean setting yourself on fire just to keep selfish people warm. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is having the courage to set boundaries and save yourself. But what about you? If you were in the protagonist's shoes, facing toxic relatives trying to exploit a family crisis, would you have chosen the same path of radical justice as she did? Or do you think there is a better, perhaps more peaceful way to handle such a difficult situation? Please leave your opinions and alternative solutions in the comments section below so we can discuss them together. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Revenge Reign to stay tuned for more thought-provoking stories. See you next time.